Good evening, everyone. This is Monique Wrigley with the Mo You Know, and I have a special guest today that I'm interviewing. I have Mr. Eliseo Santana, candidate for Pinellas County Sheriff, with us. I feel extremely privileged to have you as a guest, Mr. Santana. Thank you very much for taking time out with me today and our live viewing audience here to kind of learn a little bit more about you and why you're running for sheriff and all of those good things. Um, what I'd like to do is give folks an opportunity to get on to it, the actual stream and live video, so that they don't miss a moment of all this good information. So here we go. I will give them around 2 minutes.
Excellent.
Awesome. While you're running. Awesome. I'm starting to see folks join. Awesome. All right. And Mr. Eliseo, if you want to share the link that I've provided, you can, not the link that you're in now, but the Facebook Live, you can on your page. But we are live.
All right.
And so let's get started. All right. So just so everyone knows a little bit more about the format that we follow in regards to the Mo You Know. I'm not here to talk about, Democrats versus Republicans, left versus right, any of that stuff. Want to just get to know you more so as a candidate and understand more about what you're bringing to the table. Give our viewers an opportunity at the end of our conversation, an opportunity to ask you some questions via our live chat towards the end, and just kind of unpack some of the plans that you have for us. So that's what we're here for. Not here to convince anyone to vote for you or not to vote for you. I want to have a very transparent mode of communication and knowledge transfer. It's all about knowledge transfer because the mantra is the more you know, the more you know, the more you grow. So we want to make sure that folks are making informed decisions. All right. All right. So Eliseo, I think it's okay to go ahead and get started. Eliseo, I want to, again, thank you very much for being here today and spending this time with us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Of course. First of all, I want to say thank you, Monique, because it is through this type of showing that the residents, the citizens of our county are able to really make an informed decision based on the facts as they come out of the individuals that are said. And there's something that needs to be addressed, and hopefully I'll be able to answer some of the questions. I am a father. I'm a father of 4 children and a grandfather of 13, 12 girls and 1 boy. I am a community leader. Currently, I'm the president and founder of Puerto Rico Connect that started right after the Maria hurricane, when we had an influx of Puerto Ricanos arriving, and I saw a need for them to be integrated into the community. And also, I'm the president of LULAC Pinellas, which is the largest Hispanic Latino organization in the United States, and we have a council here in Pinellas in order to bring us, the Latino community, in line. Just recently I was the vice president of the League of Women Voters, and of course I'm a member of NAACP now, and many other organizations. I am a veteran of the U.S. Army and the Florida National Guard. I served for 4 years, and after I finished my serving in the Army in 1980, I came to Florida with my wife. We just finished celebrating 42 years of marriage on the 17th. And so
Congratulations.
it is such a blessing. I feel I feel so secure, and
Awesome.
I feel so blessed that I have such a strong partner next to me for such a
Mhm.
long term.
That's
Um,
awesome.
so I arrived here in 1980, and I started working for the sheriff department as a technician. I was the first one. I was the first uh, individual of color hired as a technician ever in that agency, and I retired from that after 31 years.
Uh-huh.
And so basically, let's open this up. And I'm, you know, I don't know what to say. That when somebody asks me to describe myself, that's a very hard question because there's so many things that are
Oh,
involved.
it's a loaded question. It is a
It is.
loaded question. For sure. Absolutely. Well, let's see if I can bring it in a little bit closer to home and why we're here today. Tell us a little bit about why you are running for sheriff.
I served for 31 years in the sheriff department as a technician, and I built up through the ranks. In Finally, at the end, I was in charge of implementing technology and also maintaining that technology within the sheriff department. In other words, I was an integral part of modernizing our sheriff department, bringing it up to the 21st century. And while I was there as a man of color, I was able to experience a lot of this this bias that is institutional. It's I don't think there's any one particular individual. It's just the system itself that is geared toward. Let me give you a quick example.
Okay.
Day one, I just got hired. I spent 6 months going through the process of getting all these testing, and I got hired with the sheriff department back in 2000. Excuse me, in 1981. And
Wow.
on day one, I got called into the second in command
Hmm.
of the sheriff. I went to his office, and right away, remember, I was the first man of color to be hired, and he started the conversation with saying, "You're not a good fit. I did not
Oh.
want you here." That was my initial conversation into the organization. Let me tell you, it has not changed much
Okay.
since then. They're not as vocal and straightforward now as they were then, but
Yeah.
we need to change that culture.
Okay. Okay.
So
So,
that's why I'm embarking on this journey is to be able to change that culture.
okay.
Uh,
So it's an overall culture changing that you're really wanting to get to the bottom of and really have an impact around change and et cetera, right?
exactly. It's and it's a lot greater than that. I'll give you right now the 32 commanders, the people that run the Pinellas County Sheriff Department,
Mm-hmm.
captains, majors, directors. If you
Mm-hmm.
look at the 32 individuals that are in that senior staff, there's only one person of color within that 32 individuals. So when you
Okay.
wonder why decisions are made that do not reflect the community and why they do not understand what they're doing is essential. It's 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 because the people you have there. We need to change that. We need to have people there that represent the community.
Right, 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 right. Okay, great, great. That's great information. So, with that being said, wanting to change the color representation around individuals, and of course, representation of individuals do impact representation of decision making and in considerations. Um, if you were elected um, tomorrow, what are some of the top priorities, top things that you would want to change as sheriff of Pinellas County?
Well, about 20 years ago, I was involved in doing a pilot program evaluating body cameras. Now, this is 20 years ago when it
Okay.
was at the beginning of this. And in I determined with my team that it was viable, it was feasible, it was something that changed the behavior of the officer, made them behave more professional,
Mhm.
and it also protected the public and protected the officers themselves from being accused of something, because we could then see what is happening and make that decision. So we were about ready to make it happen, and the sheriff opted not to pursue
Oh,
that.
wow.
That was 20 years ago. Technology has shifted quite greatly right now, and the ability to make it and implement it quite rapidly is there. And so one of the things that I'm going to do at right at the beginning is start the process of
Right.
making it happen.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. That's a very relevant, I would say, uh, top priority that I think a lot of America is wondering when it's going to be a priority across the board right about now. So I
It,
think that
it's a
that's
key.
very relevant.
It's a key. Is
It
the
is.
cornerstone of being transparent and
Mm-hmm.
being accountable.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why we're having so many people in the streets now is because they were able to see for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
because of all the cameras that were involved in cell phones, and also the body cameras that the officers had. They were able to see that
It's all televised.
it was murder in front of us,
Mhm.
that was witnessed, and everybody that was able to see that could see that that was wrong. And that
Yeah.
is why this is a unique opportunity that we have, to be able to come out and say that this must end.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of what we witnessed, personally, in my years of being alive, I've never seen anything like what we're seeing. And I'm not saying that some of the activities that have been going on haven't been going on before I existed, but it is televised, and it's an unrest that can be felt everywhere, from the grocery store to the job. Everywhere, everyone feels it. Some type of want to get something done. And so I want to know a little bit more about you personally. How do you feel about the social unrest that we are currently going through as America in the wake of the killings, of George Floyd, and in general? I could list, I don't want to do that, but just in general, the social unrest that we all feel right now.
That is the most American thing we can do. When we witness murder in front of us and we become awakened, uh, to the fact that we have an institution that can act with impunity, with very little negativity to the individuals that are doing it. And it's not just the individuals, the whole institution allows that kind of behavior. And let me tell you that that starts at the very top. That is what we need to change, our sheriff, and put somebody in there that knows and understands and will not allow this type of behavior. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it is when people come out and they demonstrate, I am going to make sure that they are safe in doing that demonstration. This is part of being the law enforcement. It is to protect the constitutional rights of people to express themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very happy to hear that you have that stance. And I think even based on some of the things that you said here earlier, get to a point where we don't have to protest the way we are. You know what I mean? So citizens feeling like we have to protest for justice is a whole issue that has to be unpacked on its own. But there's a lot of work that has to be done so that we don't get there. And one of the things that we've heard over and over and over again is around the defunding of the police. And I'm going to do it like this: defunding of the police. So, some people say it's a solution and we're putting too much money into defunding of the police and we need to put it other places. We've defunded education. Why wouldn't we do this? I want to get your overall thought process or overall thoughts around the media and just folks in general talking about defunding police. What does that mean? And is that the answer? And if it's not, what are some of the answers that could help resolve some of the challenges we're having?
Well, first of all, we need to understand what is happening and the culture that is behind this. We have individuals that are trained They're selected and they're trained in order to be able to fight crime. They go through the academy, they get through the training, and their whole process is when they put on their uniform, they're looking to fight crime. And then 3/4 of the time, this is 3/4 of the time that they're out there in the streets, what their actions are have nothing to do with fighting crimes.
Yeah.
They are getting called because of some kind of a mental crisis, mental illness crisis that an individual is going through. They get called because of homelessness situation. They get called because of some kind of a drug abuse type of, and these are individuals that are going there. They're not trained to
Right.
handle and to be able to resolve that kind of issues. They're there basically to see if there's a crime committed. So they're looking for a crime, and then they're going to do what is in their tools. They're going to arrest you. And if there's some resistance to that arrest, then their training is to escalate it to the next level instead of de-escalating it to reduce that risk and the need for action. So what we need is to rethink policing in this county.
Mm-hmm.
We do not need to send a law enforcement officer to address the majority of these things. We need to send a social worker, some kind of a clinical therapist, some kind of an expert in being able to deal with the situation that is the cause of that call, and be able to allow the individuals that is in front of them to have a way out, to have a solution, to find that answer that will be a long-term safe and security of our community,
Right.
rather than taking somebody that's having that momentary crisis and basically forcing them into an arrest and then taking them into jail. And then there are so many negative side effects when we do this. I, I just had an acquaintance of mine in Pinellas Park that
Mm-hmm.
had a mental crisis. Their family called 911 because they needed to Baker Act him. They needed to put him, for his own safety. And the police showed up. Obviously, we're not trained to de-escalate. And the person ended up, he decided in his mental illness that he was going to commit suicide by cop. And he did everything he could in order to have that officer shoot him. And he did. He got shot. And he's recuperating now. But addressing these issues with brute force is not
Yeah.
the answer. We need to change the way we do it. And in doing that, we reduce the need to have deputies, to have police officers, because we're not going to be responding to these things. And that'll give us more time to give them the proper training they need so that when they are needed, they can de-escalate the situation. And instead of bringing that force of power, that hammer upon somebody, to bring some solution that is less than that. And still, when we talk about defunding the police, in reality, what we're talking about is allocating the funds to those individuals that are best suited to address the issue long term. And when we do
So it's
that,
more of a reallocation, not taking money away and just saying no. We're not going to invest in this.
if we take that investment and we're able to bring in the social workers, the clinical, the people that are the experts to be able to handle it, um,
Right.
it actually will be more bang for the dollar, uh, and it'll be more of a long term situation, because when we arrest somebody that is working two part-time jobs, uh, and none of them give them some kind of benefit, but they're working very hard to keep their family going, and because of the corona thing that's happening and all of the issues that are happening, they go through a mental crisis, that momentary thing, and then we arrest them and put them in jail. They just lost their job. They
So
just lost their
yeah.
livelihood, and the family is now destined to be homeless and go through a lot of hardship. So let's address these issues in a more effective manner.
Right. So, and do you think that this should be tackled on a local level, or do you think that nationally that this is that it should be tackled from a national stance, and this is the way that we're doing? This is the standard operating process when we talk about policing or when someone dials 911. Or do you think we have to start on that local level and hope that others, according to their area, are addressing it the way they need to address it?
I have good news for you. The way that the sheriff for Pinellas County,
Mm-hmm.
the way the sheriffs are in the state of Florida,
Mm-hmm.
when you elect me, I will
Oh,
have the authority to make these things happen.
okay. Okay. Awesome. 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 Well, that's great information. Now, um, I am not one to ever down talk or bash another candidate or anyone that's ever that's already in office when I do these types of interviews ever. But I do want to know what you feel. If you could just talk to the live audience and to those that will view this later, is truly a. I know you said that you would bring in that aspect of a person of color. So, but outside of that, what are some real differentiating factors between you, your other candidates that you're running against, and your current sheriff in Pinellas County?
Well, the sheriff is had enough time to be able to shape the sheriff's organization the way that he feels that is best for him,
Yeah.
and that basically has been to militarize the deputies. Um, Whenever you introduce that militarization, you have a sense that you have the deputies on one side and you have the enemy at the other, and that is not a good outcome for that. We need to be able to. Where the difference between us is that I am looking at the officers being a service to the community, a true service to the community, not somebody that is going in there and hammering everybody into behaving themselves. We need to address the core issues that we have. We need to address that sense of security that we have to have when look. I, as a citizen in this county, and I have been stopped by police officers for no reason at all. Okay, they
Mhm.
pulled me over, and let me tell you that there are there's two societies here. There's one in which when the police officers gets behind you, they're thinking, wow, I'm going to have to pay a fine. You know, I'm going to have to pay a fine. It's going to cost me money. And then there's the other part of society, the one that I am in. And that is that, wow, I wonder where this is going to end up. You know, I'll be lucky if I just pay a fine. You know,
Yeah.
my freedom, my life is in the hands of that individual. And that has very little accountability right now and very little negative effects on their actions if they, as sheriff, I'm going to guarantee, I'm going to demand, I will not tolerate somebody misbehaving, being disrespectful, or fishing to get somebody in jail. We're going to be behaving that same way across the board. When I get stopped by an officer, I am in fear of my future. And this is a law abiding individual, and it is unacceptable. We need to change that perception. And the difference is that our current sheriff feels that by having their officers put that control, demand control over the situation,
Mm-hmm.
and instill that force, he feels that they're safer that way, and they're not. They're not safer that way. We need to
Right.
truly make the community and the officers safer.
Awesome. That's great information. I mean, I told you at the beginning of this, I'm interviewing you for all of Facebook Live and everyone who's going to watch this video later, but I'm also interviewing you for my edification as I am an active voter and I need to make some decisions as well. So I'm thoroughly impressed with some of the responses and your feeling. I can tell you're passionate about it, exuding. Um, Another well, before we open up to the live audience, we're gonna get ready to open up for you all to ask Mr. Eliseo Santana some questions that you may have for him. So if you have questions, please begin typing them in the comment box. But before we do that, what I wanted to do is provide you an opportunity with any thoughts that you wanted to share with us around, in general, why you're running or anything we didn't cover tonight.
As I mentioned before, in order for somebody to be able to address a problem and have a solution, you must be able to see the problem.
Right.
It's obvious to me that the current administration does not see it. And if anything, they're going to double down on what they're doing. All of that military equipment that they have, they're there to be able to impose their will. But when it gets to that point, we're too late. We're already too late because we've lost that ability of being. I want our deputies to truly be a service to the community, to be there and be known by the merchants, to be known by people. And if there is some need that they have, for them to feel free to be able to call them and be able to have that address instead of what has been happening lately. When you call police for help, bad things happen. The person that calls asking for help sometimes is arrested, sometimes even more serious than that. That leads to people not wanting to call when they need that help. And that also leads to whenever the police shows up for you to see the enemy, somebody that's not your friend. And we need to change that, and I will change that.
That's awesome. I really appreciate that response. While we're waiting for any responses from the live audience, I do have one question, and for anyone else out there that doesn't really understand how it works. So with the understanding that you're running for Pinellas County Sheriff, what range of power or impact, influence do you have on the local police departments within Pinellas County? So for example, City of Clearwater Police. How will you partner or influence or make sure that things are aligned with some of the things that you've talked about here today?
My understanding as a constitutional officer, the public safety for the whole county, from the southern tip to the most northern, is within my shoulders. We have some cities, Largo, Clearwater, St. Petersburg, and others that have their own police force. And I will support them and help them in any which way to enhance their ability to do what they're doing. But the ultimate responsibility for the safety and security of this county falls on the sheriff.
That's awesome. That is absolutely a great reality, and I think that that's the way it's got to go. It's got to be all entangled. It can't be in silos and decisions made in a vacuum. So definitely working together is the way to go. So before I close out, I see a few people are commenting. I don't know if you can see some of the comments. They're basically agreeing with some of the stuff that you've shared with us, the information that you've shared with us today. And I just want to know if anyone has any questions. And if no one has any questions, I want to know if you had any closing remarks, Mr. Eliseo Santana, and any information that you would like to share with everyone.
We have a unique opportunity. The universe has aligned itself with the COVID-19, with the demonstrations in the streets by everyone, not just us, the minority, but everybody that has seen and demand a change. We have a unique opportunity because of the time that we're in now to be able to vote. That is the power that we have as Americans. That's the power we have as citizens. If you have not registered, register. If you are thinking that your vote doesn't count, it counts. Vote for Santana, because this is how we're going to achieve that we demand in the streets, that that is necessary for us to have a safe community. I represent change,
Yes.
and that change is revolutionary, and it starts with your vote.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there were a few people that came in late. So I wanted to give an opportunity for you to answer. Do you mind diving a little deeper into your background as far as law enforcement? I know it was over 30 years, I believe, in the sheriff's
Yes,
department, but
yes, I basically was worked as a technician. I was brought in as a technician, fixing the computer systems, the radio systems for the sheriff department. I ended up being responsible for the radio systems at not just for patrol, but at the jail facility. All of the visitation system that we have at the jail, all of the camera surveillance systems that we have, that was under my umbrella. The design, the implementation, and the maintenance of. And let me tell you that you will think technology changes the behavior of people. We were having a huge problem at the jail facility when at what they call the intake, when an individual is arrested and they're brought to the jail, and all their valuables are removed, their money, their rings, all of that was removed. And we were having a lot of people complaining that their stuff was being stolen, that they had $500 and
wow.
now they only have five, and so in order to correct that situation, I went ahead and I put in multiple
Mhm.
cameras in that location where we would be able to see the
Mhm.
denominations of the money. We would be able to see everything very clearly by different angles of that was coming out of the individual and that was being logged and put away. And that gave the officers there the sense of security. They were not going to be falsely accused, and if they were, they had recourse. And it also guaranteed to our citizens that the officers there were going to behave in an ethical and professional manner. And so that also applies for other areas in which I have used technology in order to change the behavior and bring about that professionalism that we demand. And that's why it's so important that we have a body camera and a vehicle camera in all of our officers, so that when there is an issue, we're able to then look at it and address it and be able to come up with solutions. Now, right now, we really do need to have the community, the ministers, the leaders of the community, the NAACP leaders, everybody to come together and to form some kind of a committee, that a citizens committee that will be able to evaluate and look at these incidents that we have that are controversial, and for them to have full access to everything they need, and then come up with a solution, a recommendation, give us the answer as to what they felt was the right thing to do. And if there was some wrongdoing, give them teeth to be able to address it, because I will
Absolutely.
not tolerate that kind of misbehavior by anyone. And if we see it and it's obvious, I will act swiftly and quickly to resolve it.
That's amazing. That's great. That's great information. We have another question from Ms. Jeanne Coleman. Jeanne would like to know, what would you have done regarding the Marquise McLaughlin situation?
I would have
That's
resolved
deep.
the
I know.
problem. I
Yeah.
would have resolved that issue came at the end of having poor leadership, having a culture. Uh, when you have the individual when you have the individual that is in charge of that killing, if you may. Um, Now, which incident was it that we're looking at now?
Marquise McLaughlin. So in Clearwater, he was killed at the convenience store.
Yes, at the convenience store right next to my
Yep.
house. I
Yes,
frequent that convenience store. I know that
absolutely.
situation very well. Um, wow. That individual would have been immediately arrested, and he would have had to stand in front of a judge and to make that determination as to his wrongdoing, or innocence. We had video, we had people that were there, and instead the sheriff allowed him to go home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Allowed
And
him to
and
go home.
and out of respect, I said the situation, and I want to clarify what I should have said: the murder of Marquise McLaughlin. So the murder of it, yes, he was allowed to go home. So you're saying that you would have immediately had him arrested and taken some action versus letting him go home.
He would have gone to a jail facility and been processed. Then the courts would decide how they were going to handle that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
instead, the sheriff himself decided that he was innocent and let him go. It's not my job to decide if somebody is innocent or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I did just receive an additional question and private chat around the stand your ground law. What are your thoughts around the stand your ground laws? We talk about, Marquise and his murder, and you think about Trayvon Martin, murder. What are your thoughts around that law that exists in Florida? I'm not saying that you are going to magically make it change, but how do you feel that we can make it a little easier to deal with it? Are you a supporter of it?
Well, let me tell you that uh, when in November we go out there and we vote for who is going to be president of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And when we go in November, at the same time, when we go down and vote for Santana for sheriff, we
Okay.
also have to go down and vote for the representatives that are going to make these laws in the state of Florida. And we need to make sure that these individuals address this and put it in a way that that is reasonable. Um, it is whoever uses a weapon to kill someone
Yeah.
is going to have to account for that in the court of law, and I am going to make sure that that occurs. I cannot say whether they're guilty or not guilty, but if you use that, whether that law is there or not, it doesn't change the fact that murder will not be tolerated.
Yeah, I think that the only thing that it does is it muddies how we're able to convict those that are doing some of these murders, so to speak. So it does have.
Let's vote for the legislators right now in this election. We're going to have some legislators that voted for
We
that
have
law.
some great candidates up. Absolutely, I agree
So
with
this
that. So
revolution that we have is enormous. We can change the national leadership. We
yes,
can change the
absolutely.
county leadership, and we can
Yeah.
change Florida leadership in this election. So that is why it's so important for those of us
Hmm.
that have mistaken the fact of saying that our vote don't count. We need to make sure that they're aware that yes, it does, and in this election, it counts even more.
Absolutely, absolutely. I do have a question. Everyone loves what you're saying, and we have someone that has a question for you, and you're going to like this question. It's from Jeanne again. Do you have yard signs?
Ah, I've decided to run for sheriff just 3 weeks ago, and
Mhm.
so we're in the process. We just got the website, I think, operational this morning, and so there's a lot of things that we're doing. In order to get the campaign going, and getting yard signs is something that we're going to be doing. We have not yet done, but go to santanaforsheriff.com, Santana for sheriff.com. That four is not the letter, not the word should I say not the number 4, but the FOR, Santana4sheriff.com. And in there, you can ask to receive the yard signs and also to volunteer, because I cannot do this. This is not me. I'm just representing the people. I'm representing you.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it. You're representing the people and us as the voters. Everyone, you got to get out there and vote. You got to mail in your ballot. You got to let your vote count this year. It has been a pleasure meeting with you and hearing from you, learning more about you. Please go out and visit Mr. Eliseo Santana's email or website, learn a little bit more about him, ask questions. You can also post additional questions in this stream as Mr. Santana is tagged in this stream, and he'll be able to have access in this. Again, the vote is around the corner. It's in August. Eliseo, would you like to speak to that? The date?
Absolutely. I'm going to be involved in I'm a Democrat, so we're going to be involved in a primary, and the vote by mail. And I suggest, if you haven't done so, that you request the vote by mail. That gives you the time to be able to fill it and return it. But the vote by mail is going to be starting in less than 3 weeks. Election is on, already.
Yeah.
And so the actual counting is going to be, I believe, August the 18th is the day that they're going to be
August
counting. But the election itself is going to start with the vote by mail in less than 3 weeks. Vote for Santana. Vote. Grab that and vote. We need to have new leadership at the national, at the state, and this county level. It's essential that we cast our vote. So there's nothing ever in the past that's been so clear. If you like the militarization of our law enforcement, if you like having that power imposed on the community, and if you like spending so much money on unnecessary, not related to law enforcement activities, then vote for the guy that's there now, because he's going to give you more of that. But if you want to change, if you truly want our community to be safe, vote for Santana.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope that you all will get out there and you'll vote in August and again in November. And Mr. Santana, it's great to meet you. Have a good night.
Monique, thank you for your service.
Thank you. Have a good night.